Warning. You are listening to the D23 episode of X-Ray Vision this week, and we're spitting a lot of theories on the MCU and talking about stuff from D23, so be warned. The D23 Expo has come and gone, and it is time to unpack the teasers, the trailers, the announcements, and more, and what they might mean for the MCU. It is time to irresponsibly make predictions. Let's start with Secret Invasion, the trailer of which was released on the internet. Disney Plus show stars Martin Friedman, reprising his role as Everett K. Ross, CIA agent Everett K. Ross, Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury, Ben Mendelsohn as Talos, Don Cheadle as War Machine out of the armor. Now, apparently, some sort of government official in the Department of Defense of some sort. Kobe Smulders back as Maria Hill. Olivia Colman confirmed as Special Agent Sonia Fallsworth. Kingsley Ben-Adir confirmed as Gravik. Emilia Clarke as We Don't Know. And folks, let's talk about it because this, first of all, trailer is great. Real Captain America and the Winter Soldier vibes, real Civil War
spy,
vibes.
Even more like a British spy movie.
Yeah.
From like Feige had promised that this was going to be way more intimate than the Secret Invasion event, and you can see it's going for this kind of suspenseful spy thriller vibe.
The question is, how much is this going to take from the Secret Invasion event? So just to jump back, Rosie, would you like to tell the folks what Secret Invasion was?
So Secret Invasion is just like, it's kind of hard to talk about how unbelievably impactful it was. So it was like June 2008, January 2009, classic event style. It was a series, but with a ton of kind of spin-offs, incredible creative team on the main, which is Brian Michael Bendis, Leinil Francis Yu, Mark Morales, Laura Martin. And essentially, the baseline is that you discover that many of the heroes that we assumed were our most famous heroes were actually shape-shifting Skrulls who had been put in at every different level of heroism and government. And it had the best tagline, which was, "Who do you trust?"
Yeah.
It was groundbreaking. It also is one of the best events for spin-offs. We talk a lot about Secret Wars and stuff, but there is an unbelievable Black Panther spin-off that came out of this called See Wakanda and Die, which was just so cool. And basically the notion is that you are going to find out which heroes are not heroes and are actually villains. And there's so much fun stuff in this. So this is obviously not something that's going to happen in the show, but I think about this all the time, which is the only person who can tell who the Skrulls are throughout Secret Invasion is 3D Man with his magical 3D glasses. Yeah. So he's seeing Skrulls and he's like, yo, that's a fucking Skrull. And they're like, no, man, that's like Hawkeye. So this is the kind of event that I feel like we don't get to see as many of them anymore, but we occasionally do. But this reshaped the entire way people saw the Marvel Universe and the way that the Marvel Universe saw heroes, which is very relevant to this because another announcement we got was Thunderbolts. So we'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, Skrulls, they're here. They've been here for a long time. And in the comic book event, it was like nobody's safe.
Yeah.
Anyone could be a Skrull. And this was a way for them the Skrull Empire to take over Earth. Now in this, we know from what Feige said that it's going to be much smaller scale. But the one thing we can assume is that there is going to be at least one character, but maybe two, who are key to the MCU who are going to be revealed as Skrulls. That has to happen.
That has to happen. Now, before we get into who's a Skrull, I just want to say that like this era of Marvel Comics, I guess I would probably starting with Avengers Disassembled, going into like Secret War, the first Secret War, Annihilation, House of M, Decimation, Civil War, Planet Hulk, World War Hulk, and then into Secret War, and then Dark Reign, which wasn't really an event, more like a line-wide reboot. It was a really incredible era of Marvel Comics where all the events affected everything that happened after. You talked about what an incredible like jumping off point Secret Wars was, because Secret Wars really, it created this air of paranoia in Marvel Comics where all of a sudden Dark Reign became possible because everybody was like, hold on, the superheroes got in a civil war with each other, fighting each other, and then we find out that many of them aren't even who they say they are. They were actually Skrulls. Yeah. How can we trust them? And then it turned into this whole thing where Norman Osborn took power and had a secret like Avengers team and so it really feels like as we go into Thunderbolts, that is what we're setting up right now. Whatever happens after Secret Wars is going to be, we're going to see a world and an MCU that is less trustful of heroes going forward.
Yeah, and something that I think is like really interesting that this kind of ties into that I had never really considered before, right? So we've talked a lot about how do you build a world that doesn't trust people with powers. It's Secret Invasion. It's not, It doesn't even have to have the political machinations and all the other stuff that we've already seen them bring in really well with Miss Marvel and kind of that we've talked about that are so key to the X-Men. But Secret Invasion is your real jumping off point for that. Because not only are some of these heroes actually Skrulls who've been posing there for years, but also the heroes they have taken over are just like hidden off somewhere and like couldn't even escape. Like, that's the worst thing is, like, not only are they not the heroes you thought, but the heroes you thought have been trapped. So what kind of heroes are they?
There is a moment in this where we see bodies in stasis in some kind of room. Olivia Colman's character and another agent kind of, like, have found this area, leading us to believe that, yes, over time and over the years, certainly not Talos's group of Skrulls, but some other more imperialistic, more warlike sect of Skrulls, because the Skrull Empire is really big, spanning many, many planets. And it would make sense there'd be different factions within that. This more warlike faction has over time been steadily replacing probably influential people, and we would imagine some heroes with Skrulls. The question is for how long? Now, there's a moment in this trailer where we see, there's a lot of fun stuff in this trailer. So Nick Fury says, like, this is my war alone. I'm the last person standing between them. And then you see, like, this closet open with this, like, silver case inside. And the case is like on ice or refrigerator or something because they open it. It's, like, steaming. And so you're led to believe, because of the voiceover in this image, is like, okay, stands between them and what? Do you have any theories on what is in the case?
I mean, there's so much stuff. Like, in my mind, I have, like, wild comic book theories. I feel like the safest, most MCU bet is some kind of Stark tech or some kind of cosmic... I don't think they're going to bring the Infinity Gems back again, but I feel like it's something with a world-ending or world-shifting possibility. But I'm very interested to know what you think it may be.
The Infinity Formula.
Okay, yes.
So part of the way in the comics that they explain how Nick Fury could have served in World War II in a commando cadre, like as the leader of the Howling Commandos, and then also be running around like in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s with various other superheroes, is that he, at a certain point in time, was injected with this formula, the Infinity Formula, that just dramatically slows his aging. He still looks like a middle-aged man, but, he's like 99, 102, whatever. He's very, very old. So my theory is whatever is in that case is whatever the MCU version of the Infinity Formula is. Is Nick Fury injected with something? Is that the case? Is he a lot older than we actually know about? Has he been running around for a while? I'm not saying that, but I think that that's my theory.
I think that's a very safe bet, because that could also be the Deus Ex Machina that the MCU has been looking for when it comes to the constant struggle of how to cast Magneto and Charles.
Right.
In the X-Men. So I think that the introduction of some kind of Infinity Formula, some elixir of life, that could be very likely. Yeah, I'm very interested to see what it is that the Skrulls could possibly want from Earth, other than to just invade it. Now, the other option that I do think is likely that could tie in, and this is this is pretty out there, but I think it could work. We know that Ms. Marvel and Captain Marvel Carol Danvers at the end of the episode, and we learned more about this at D23, which we'll talk about in a bit. But we know that the Negabands, whatever version that they have of those, are allowing them to switch places. We know that those are of Kree origin, the Kree Skrull War. I wonder if there's a version of it where it's some kind of artifact like that allows that switch, that allows them to control other people, because it's very useful as a Skrull. So yeah, I'm very interested, because I feel like there's things that are so innate to Secret Invasion, like the Super Skrull, that you can't necessarily do without the Fantastic Four. So I'm very intrigued to see how the MCU recontextualizes this as an introduction to do all those other cool Skrull stories that we haven't really gotten to see.
Here's my other potential theory. Super Skrulls don't exist yet, but the Skrulls find out about Super Soldier or some other type of serum, and they think, oh, what would happen if we created Super Skrulls, our own Super Soldier Skrulls that could then take over the universe?
Maybe that's what's in the...
Yeah.
Maybe that's what's in the box. Maybe it's Super Soldier Serum, because Nick knows about that. And we know that Super Soldier Serum is going to be... It's coming back into play, which we'll also talk about.
My only thing with that is that then too much? Like, is it too much Super Soldier Serum at this point after Falcon and the Winter Soldier, etc.? Is it too much about the Super Soldier Serum?
Yeah, well, they keep that in the Captain America world, and this is something different. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. It's something that I think all of us as fans, especially if you grew up and you were reading those comics when they came out, have always wanted to see. And I feel like this is a very different vision of it. But, Winter Soldier is one of the most highly regarded and beloved MCU movies. So it's cool to see them going back to this spy genre space. There's some other big questions here as well. Like, Emilia Clarke. I have my theory. Who is she? Okay,
Tell me, who do you think?
So I think from the beginning, I assumed that she was going to be playing Jessica Drew, Spider-Woman.
Yes!
AKA the Skrull Empress.
I love it.
Varanke, who posed as Jessica Drew. Now, from watching this trailer, I would say if they're going to do it, they're going to have to reimagine it. She's Agent Jessica Drew of the Department of Damage Control or something. I don't think it's going to be exactly the same character. But as soon as you don't cast Emilia Clarke for like a no-one role, right? And as soon as I saw her, I'm just thinking like you get to have this dueling thing where she could be the real Jessica Drew, but she can also be Varanke. It's a dual role. That's my hope and my wish. And also they could maybe get around the Sony stuff because she's technically not her in the show.
Right, yeah.
Because she's a Skrull. So I think that's my big guess. That's my curveball.
I love that one. I'm hoping that it's that. I wonder, would they give her the Spider-Woman powers at any point?
That's what I want to know. And so this is another really interesting thing, right? I wonder, and I know that they can pull this off if they do it this way, even though it's not necessarily the version that we envisioned. I wonder if you were the one, I believe, who first put this theory into my head about Maria Hill being the most likely Skrull. I think that is very true. And I wonder if because of the complexity of how Skrulls replicate powers, which in the comics is like a very long ongoing thing they have to explain, I do wonder whether we're going to see Skrulls who have infiltrated the government and maybe non-powered people, more like maybe like a war, a Rhodey or something, or a Sam even, instead of your more classically like strangely powered superheroes.
Well, let me put this to you. We suspect, and I think the D23 offerings heavily imply that Thunderbolts is going to come out of Secret Invasion.
Absolutely.
And it's going to be, #we were right, it's going to be a kind of Dark Reign situation where there's a mistrust of heroes that learn.
Like Dark Reign.
We can't trust our heroes anymore. We need the heroes that follow orders. And you look at that lineup and it's all soldiers, right? Yeah. So, we want the ones that will do what they're told and will be the heroes that fight for us. Now, understanding that it would probably be difficult IP-wise and maybe a little more complex to have like Norman Osborn actually be like the main guy at the head of a kind of like Dark Reign regime in the MCU. I do wonder, one, if the Contessa Valentina DeFontaine doesn't become like the Norman Osborn figure, the more political figure, the leader of the team, but also like a politician. And if she's not a Skrull. Could she be a Skrull?
Yeah. She could definitely be a Skrull. In fact, I think because of the massive stunt casting and kind of that big reveal of it being Julie Louis-Dreyfus, like, I feel that it's kind of like when you watch a murder mystery, like the first season of Only Murders in the Building, it was easy to guess who the murderer was because you were like, well, they probably wouldn't have cast this person if they weren't the murderer. So I do feel like she has big Skrull energy. Also, I think there's a lot of potential here. Something that MCU set up that was very unusual in Captain Marvel, that was very controversial, was this notion as like a certain segment of Skrulls being like essentially like space refugees who were not violent, who were not invaders, who were not this kind of maniacal force like they are in the comics. So I think we could definitely see some collaboration both between good and more morally grey Skrulls. So I think it wouldn't surprise me if you had someone like the Contessa, who is a Skrull, it's revealed, but has been working with someone on Earth, someone human, some kind of... I could not just even comprehend how cool it would be if they managed to build Norman Osborn into this. It kind of blows my mind. Really cool. But maybe down the line. But no. I think the fact that she was actually in the lineup of the Thunderbolts... Right. That's a huge deal. It's a huge deal. And this is, like you said, like that Thunderbolts reveal. There's some things that we were right about. I had always said they were going to put Bucky on that team. There was a very popular Thunderbolts run where Bucky was on the team that people really loved. But it is very interesting because it is this notion of soldiers. It is also a notion of people that the MCU would want us to think are almost anti-heroes rather than villains. Whereas the original Thunderbolts arc, which is just like so outrageous, and I still sort of think about all the time that it actually happened, which was the Kurt Busiek, Mark Bagley, Vince Russell, Joe Rosas. That was a craze at the time. It was just an absolute craze. This new team because the Avengers are gone. And they bring the book and they introduce this team and you're like, whoa, these are like crazy 90s kind of character designs. Like, could this really be a new superhero team? How often does this stick? And in the final pages, spoiler alert from this comic from 1997, but in the final pages, you learn that it's Zemo and it's the Masters of Evil. So to me, I wonder if, it's ex-members of the Masters of Evil, none of whom of the original Thunderbolts lineup are in this team. So this my really out there theory is that this lineup is the fake out and that really the team is going to be other people in disguise as those heroes or something along those lines, because that would be very Thunderbolt-ish, or that the person who is actually in charge is Zemo. Because I think that's the most kind of shocking non-inclusion here. I would love that. And two, other than Thanos's lackeys and, Captain America Civil War, we haven't seen team on team fights. Masters of Evil versus the Avengers, that kind of thing. We haven't seen a lot of that. And it would be really cool. It would just be really cool to have a Thunderbolts team that is the Masters of Evil, or the MCU version of the Masters of Evil, either overtly or covertly, that then has to go toe-to-toe with an Avengers team that is like, either on the run because the government and society is turned against them, or who are fighting to clear their names from whatever frame the government and the Contessa or Zemo has put them in. We see it so much in comics that it's almost like So in Batman, the story that you always get is like somebody's releasing a virus. In Marvel comics, and specifically like Spider-Man, Avengers comics, somebody has framed the superhero and it looks like the superhero has done something wrong. And guess what? We've seen that in many superhero movies at this point, but I think you're very on point. I think some people will be getting framed. Something about this that really excites me as well is the MCU is long, rightfully been critiqued about the way it militarized the heroes, which was very much to do with the popularity of the Ultimates comics and the way it was very easy to make a ground level superhero team. Also, the original X-Men movies did the same thing with the way the uniforms were envisioned. It's very exciting to me to imagine a world where you have the militarized government team as the antagonists and you have a grassroots, ground level team of heroes who have to fight against them without the might of Stark Tech or the might of the US government behind them. That is really cool and could be very, very exciting.
I'm super, super excited about it. We should just quickly run down the Thunderbolts lineup. Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, Ghost.
I was so happy to see that.
Really cool inclusion. Red Guardian, David Harbour. Yelena, of course. Bucky Barnes, wow. U.S. Agent, there's going to be some friction there. And Taskmaster, which, fantastic.
Okay, so I have a theory here as well. This is another theory. What if, this seems most likely of all my wild theories, my tinfoil hat theories, but what if, so Ghost, that is very much an empathetic anti-hero who was a villain only of circumstance, right?
Right.
Yelena, that is someone who has been tortured and exploited and ended up in a space where they are on a path for redemption. I would say Bucky is the same. I would say Red Guardian, Taskmaster, US Agent. There is a version where we see those three split off as this more militarized, they will do whatever.
The Masters of Evil version.
Masters of Evil, or even just like they will do whatever that Valentina wants to the point where it's shocking the other three. And I feel like there's a world where we see a split in the team. Because to me, I know that the end of Falcon and the Winter Soldier wanted us to feel like Wyatt, I mean, I love Wyatt Russell, so that's why I thought of him, but US Agent, I should say, was like doing something good. But that motherfucker killed a man
he beheaded
on the street with a fucking Captain America shield. No. Like, he is not an anti-hero. He is a villain. He has always been a villain. That is the point of the character in the comics, even though he has obviously gone to more of an anti-hero. So I think that him being next to Bucky, for example, that doesn't exactly make sense to me, or him being next to Ghost. So I could see this being the team as it begins, but there's definitely a space for a moral split.
I agree with you. I think that, again, just irresponsibly making predictions, I would imagine a circumstance where the Contessa puts this team together and they go on a mission and she presents it as one way. Here's what the mission is, and here's what we're doing, and here's what we're fighting against. That is, in Nick Fury fashion, a lie, but in Contessa Valentina de Fontaine fashion, like a orders of magnitude worse lie than the kind of lies that Nick Fury tells. And what happens is Yelena and Bucky figure out, we're fighting or doing something that we shouldn't be doing, that's not just illegal, but morally wrong, and we don't want to do this anymore. And that's the kind of thing that causes the split. I'm super excited. I can't wait for Thunderbolts.
Okay,
I'm really excited about it.
The one thing I'm going to ask you, just one last question, because I'm just thinking about this. So we assumed that obviously Baron Zemo would be in this team. Obviously Abomination would be in this team. Maybe Sharon Carter, because she's Power Broker. This team has no original Thunderbolts. Like Songbird, which I think a lot of people thought this would be where she would debut. And it doesn't have those other characters. What does that say to you in your theory mind?
I think it says to me what you pointed out, which is at some point there is someone in disguise. There's going to be a reveal here that we're not seeing, a deeper reveal. And so I wonder, I think that's what it's going to, I think there's going to be some kind of reveal here. And we're going to find out that maybe one or more of the original Thunderbolts are masquerading as some of our characters. But what do you think?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And also something that I always try and remind myself, because it was such a fleeting moment. We have seen Black Widow use technology that just changes her face to someone else's face. And we're going to be in a post-Skrulls world. So I think there's some kind of masquerading, some kind of shielding, some kind of big reveal that's going to make this a bit more like a classical Thunderbolt.
Let me ask you this. So there is at a certain point in time, and I forget which run of Thunderbolts this was, a hero/villain named Cobalt Man joins the team, but actually it was Tony Stark undercover.
Fucking Tony.
Are any of these members working undercover for informing for Nick Fury or for somebody else?
100% who that is. It's Bucky Barnes. This guy was just the sidekick of Captain America. Like it is absolutely Bucky Barnes. Nick Fury probably sent him in there to keep an eye on the Thunderbolts. He said to him, you want to make up your debt. You want to, cross these names out of your ledger. You need to be on this team and make sure. It's got to be him, because everyone else, I'm like, you know what? They could get tricked. They could have vengeance. They could be offered something that they wanted. But after the journey that Bucky went on with Sam, I just don't see a world where he is there for... Well, I also don't see a world where he would ever willingly...
I don't see it either.
...choose to be part of a government agency again after what was done to him.
Obviously, he's traumatized and has been through some really bad stuff. But this is... Bucky Barnes prizes his free will and his agency greatly because that was taken from him, right? That he was not able, because of his programming, to really trust his intentions, his actions, and trust that he wouldn't turn into this marauding supervillain. So I think if there is an undercover person who is informing for the heroes, I think you're right that it would be him.
Bucky.
I would add that we were right about a couple things. One, that the name Thunderbolts was in honor of Thunderbolt Ross.
Yeah, that hasn't been fully confirmed, but the lineup kind of teases that our theory was absolutely right about that.
And we were right that Bucky will be a member of the team because we said that there'd be this movement to be like, we want the soldiers who are also superheroes who are going to follow orders. I want to talk briefly about this idea that's kind of been out there that people have been writing about, that the Thunderbolts is like the MCU's Suicide Squad, which is, I get it. I kind of understand that take, but also that's a take when you're not kind of experienced with what those comic book properties are, because they're completely different things.
I think it's one of those things, something that we talk about. It's like when you read the comics and you know what the teams are, it's quite frustrating because they're very different, brilliant ideas. The enforced government task force of villains who will be killed if they don't do the worst jobs that nobody wants. That's the Suicide Squad. Thunderbolts, a team of villains pretending to be heroes to gain the trust of a nation during a power vacuum. That is a really cool, other unique idea. But something that I think, like you said, you can get it. Something we talk about a lot, right, is the cyclical nature of these publishers and the way that they constantly take from each other. They take inspiration. And we've seen it in the films too.
Yeah.
We're not going to talk about this very deeply, but I will mention, because it's a great example. The final Black Adam trailer came out. Looks really cool. You know what they did?
X-Men. They took the X-Men.
They made Dr. Fate, Charles Xavier. They gave him the Blackbird. They put him in the Xavier Mansion. I wouldn't be surprised if it was Casa Loma in Toronto. And they made him the X-Men before the Marvel had done the X-Men. Marvel did the same thing with Thanos. Jim Starlin ripped off Thanos from Darkseid because he loved Jack Kirby. And then Marvel did Thanos before Darkseid in the movie.
Yeah, Lobo is Wolverine. It just goes, it goes on and on
and on and on and on forever, right? And this, in that way, I can understand why people would theorize that they will become the MCU's version of the Suicide Squad, because if it is what we have been told so far, which is very little, if the Contessa is making a government team of heroes from inverted commas villains, then that is very similar to the Suicide Squad. But to me, I feel like you're missing out if you don't just go and read those comics and see how different they are. Because the Suicide Squad...
it's very, very different.
Even the James Gunn, the most recent Suicide Squad movie is so brilliant, and it gives you a great insight into the way that it's this exploration of exploitation of prisoners and the violence of being a hero and the things that the government would make heroes do if they could control them. And that aspect of it, I do think we will see in Thunderbolts. But they're very different, guys. They're very different.
I mean, at a very basic level, Suicide Squad are villains, prisoners, forced to work for the government, whereas the Thunderbolts are villains pretending to be heroes so that they can take over the government.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great way. That's very succinct.
Werewolf by Night. Let's talk about the Werewolf by Night trailer. Whoa. This premieres on Disney Plus October 7th, just in time for Halloween. And man, this looks absolutely fantastic. Directed by Michael Giacchino, written by Peter Cameron and Heather Quinn.
Dude.
Black and white horror vibes.
Very
Gael Garcia Bernal.
Monsters.
Yes, as Jack Russell, the Werewolf by Night, which the character named Jack Russell never fails to make me laugh.
The best thing about it is, like, I am 900% sure that I have read an interview where the creator of Jack Russell, it was like Roy Thomas, I believe, classic Roy the Boy Thomas, who was like, I didn't even know that was a type of dog. I was like,
yeah, come on.
I think you did.
Stop it.
I think you did.
You stop
but
it.
like, yeah, Jack Russell, one of the best werewolf names of all time. This looks so weird. I mean, we are huge fans of Michael Giacchino here. Unbelievable composer. So I'm very excited to see him bring his talents to the visual language of the MCU. Also, we get the new banner here, which is the Marvel Studios special presentation, which is kind of this like 70s, almost like Boogie Nights looking thing, which I love because it's like, it's like really campy. Also, probable confirmation here, I'm pretty sure, that Laura Donnelly is playing Elsa Bloodstone, another massive Marvel horror character that we were all really sure that she would show up in this.
Elsa Bloodstone, who descends from a family of monster hunters, and she's always kind of like hunting these dark monsters throughout the history of her appearance in the MCU. Do you think this takes place, like, I wonder if this doesn't take place in the fictional 1970s of the MCU.
I'm very interested to see. So She-Hulk, we cannot confirm this. We will be able to confirm this tomorrow, but right now I cannot confirm this. This is just something that we have been thinking about a long time. It seems like tomorrow, this week, She-Hulk is going to confirm the notion that comic books exist in the MCU as a way of telling stories. I wouldn't be surprised if, because of how stylistic this is a fictionalized version of something that happened in the MCU.
Oh, wow.
It looks like or maybe it's some kind of Moon Knight situation where it's somebody's version of it. I love this notion of this special presentation as if it's not 100% canon, but it's so stylistically different and it doesn't look, you could show that to somebody and tell them it's not Marvel if you don't show them the introduction.
100%, yes.
It's really abstract. It's very Universal monsters. It's all shadows. It's kind of very German expressionism. It's really strange. I did not think they were going to go this hard with it. Also, something that's very cool, these comics, brilliant comics, were black and white.
Yeah.
The Marvel horror comics were black and white. Tomb of Dracula, Werewolf by Night. So this is also a very cool way of bringing that to life. And to have Elsa Bloodstone, I mean, that's just a huge addition to the character. Even though she's like a relatively new character from like 2001, she is a massive part of the Marvel horror world. And was I right? I don't know if I ever specifically predicted this, but I have been manifesting it. This trailer does feature Man-Thing, Marvel's giant-sized Man-Thing, the best name of any character ever. One of my all-time favorite characters. Again, part of that Swamp Thing, Man-Thing. Who ripped off who? Yeah, who ripped off who? Those are the two comparisons. Another famous one there, Doom Patrol and X-Men. Just remember that one, guys, because it's going to become very relevant when the X-Men come into the MCU. But yeah, Man-Thing. This is Marvel horror is here. How does it play into the wider MCU is the big question.
That's the big question. And we, I am very excited to find out. The She-Hulk mid-season trailer has arrived. Not that we needed it, but we got it. And folks, She-Hulk continues to be super fun.
Yeah, it's great. And Daredevil's going to be in it, which we kind of knew, but this is like more confirmation in case you were worried because he hadn't turned up after 4 episodes. But Matt Murdock is going to be in Daredevil. Good for Matt Murdock. He was also there talking about Daredevil Born Again at D23, saying some very sweet things. Love that Daredevil.
Very exciting. Next up, Captain America New World Order has some of the cast confirmed. First of all, of course, Anthony Mackie returning as Sam Wilson, Captain America. Folks, the leader is back. We've been waiting.
Right.
We've been waiting for the leader to return. We've been saying, he's got to come back at some point. We were wondering if it was going to be She-Hulk. Well, folks, it's going to be Captain America New World. It could still be She-Hulk.
It could still be She-Hulk, but he's back. We were right.
He's
coming back with his big old head. Another one looks
big,
like
long head.
We are on the DC Marvel ripoff train today because this motherfucker looks like Sinestro from the Green Lantern
he really
Corps.
does, of course.
So but yeah, Samuel Stearns is the leader. Tim Blake Nelson's such a fantastic character actor, so I'm just really excited.
This will also be the debut of Sabra, the Israeli superhero, played by Shira Haas. Carl Lumbly as Isaiah Bradley is
the first Captain America. Let's please keep that in the canon because they don't mention it in the MCU, but in the comics.
Absolutely
first
huge.
Captain America.
And Danny Ramirez as the Falcon, the new Falcon.
That's a really big bit of news, I feel like.
I agree because we didn't really get a lot of Joaquin in the show. And we certainly didn't get any kind of inkling of his abilities. So this is huge. This is a big deal.
Yeah. So this we've talked a lot about the super soldier serum today already. And I think this casting announcement proves to me that Captain America New World Order is going to continue the Power Broker-esque storyline from Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And it's obviously going to be about super soldiers because you have Isaiah Bradley, who in the MCU was one of the first people who was tested on with the super soldier serum, but in the comics was the first Captain America who was out on the field in the just one of the best comics ever written. They recently actually republished it for the first time in like 10 years, so go and see it. Having Isaiah there, having the leader there, who we suspect might be the one who's trying to get She-Hulk's blood, which in this case is connected to the super soldier serum, because in the Incredible Hulk movie from 2008, we learn that Bruce gets his powers much like the Ultimates comics. Thank you, producer Chris, for that one. That's where he gets his powers, is trying to replicate the super soldier serum, but instead of using Vita radiation, like the original method, he changes it for gamma radiation.
Whoops.
And the Hulk is created.
right.
Bad plan. So this is a super soldier serum based story. Now the interesting thing is, in the comics, Sabra is a mutant.
Yeah.
In this, is she going to get her powers from the super soldier serum? Or is she going to be a mutant?
It's interesting, we've got, obviously, Kamala Khan is a mutant, right? Okay, we have that. The question is, and we can argue about whether her powers are what portion of her powers come from mutation, what portion come from the bangle.
But Wanda does also have naturally occurring powers.
Wanda also has naturally occurring powers, but who is going to be the first, they are a mutant. Their powers are derived purely from mutation. We know that's what it is. Everybody knows it's that. And there's no secondary factor like the ability, like magical powers, which again, Wanda is part of her mutation, is her ability, her affinity for magic. But it is something else. Is a kind of inherent power that resides in their own DNA and isn't something that is like amplified by an outside power source. And I do wonder, will it be Sabra? Will she be a mutant? It's a good question. I don't know the answer. Other news, Ke-Huy Quan as a TV agent in Loki season 2.
I feel like I love this because they were like, he is a TVA agent. I'm sorry. After Everything Everywhere All at Once, and prior to his inevitable Oscar win that is coming, he is not just playing a TVA agent. That is going to be a major character.
That is something else.
And also, the TVA is obviously going to become a big part of this, not just because we got Kang stuff down the line, but even in Werewolf by Night, there were TVA agents with their time batons. So this is a very big part coming in. I was so happy to see this. I love Ki-Hai Kwan. I love Everything Everywhere All at Once. I love Indiana Jones. I love the Goonies. Icon, happy he's there.
Is there any world in which he's like a hero undercover that eventually is revealed as a hero that we know?
That is, if there is any justice in the world and they know what they have by being able to cast him, I think that's what it has to be. You don't just cast him as a TVA agent. You cast him as someone who's there with a motivation that becomes an ally to Loki, who at some point you reveal has powers or some kind of longer running space within the MCU.
Up next, Matt Shakman confirmed to direct the Fantastic Four movie. No casting announcement, no trailer, no nothing. Just that Matt Shakman will be the director.
Congrats to that, Matt.
Yeah, congrats to him. According to Justin Kroll on Twitter, quote, Feige, for the most part, does not want to make big casting decisions without getting input from his director, which I think seems wise. Of course, there were a ton of rumors flying before D23, but we'll wait to see what emerges from there. But just terribly exciting that we are on the road to a Fantastic Four movie. Of course, we saw the logo some months ago, but this is super exciting. New Wakanda Forever Black Panther footage, and we get an idea of what the plot is about. Here from Collider is a description, quote, in the exclusive clip shown to the audience, we see Queen Ramonda arrive at the United Nations with a group of men. They sit. The men push their microphones down, spotlighting the Queen's presence in the room. A representative from the U.S. starts to complain about the fact that Wakanda has not shared their vibranium with the world, and a French representative similarly speaks up, saying that vibranium has the potential to be a weapon of mass destruction because the material can't be detected by metal detectors. It has to be shared for the sake of global security. But despite these dramatic declarations, Ramonda makes it very clear why Wakandans do not trade vibranium and never have and never will. It is their policy to never trade vibranium under any circumstances, not because of the danger of vibranium, but because of the dangerous potential of outsiders using this material. And so here again, one thing that's extremely clear, it's been kind of, I think one of the kind of criticisms, or at least complaints that people have had, is like, what is the MCU about now? What phase are we in? What is the general direction? The general direction is, as we're seeing with Armor Wars, as we're seeing with Wakanda Forever, as we're seeing with Secret Wars into Thunderbolts, is all of this stuff is out there. The armor, Tony Stark's armor, is out in the world. Vibranium is leaking out, and governments are concerned about it. People that are uncontrollable have superpowers now, and now is like the reaction from the rest of the world towards the revelations that have happened in the previous phases. I think this is really a super smart take on a Black Panther sequel.
I think it's really, really clever. I'm very interested to see the way they go with this, because the whole point of Wakanda originally was like, what if this space existed that had never been colonized, that had never been destroyed, that had never had its resources drained and stolen? So to then put them in this position where exactly that has potential to happen. And it will also, we know that in this world, T'Challa is dead. We know that will be happening in Black Panther 2, that he will die. People see it as a power vacuum, and that is going to encourage Wakanda to make the tough decision of who the next Black Panther will be.
I wonder what triggers Namor's attack on Wakanda. Is he a hired gun? Is somebody did they contact him and be like, go in there, steal the vibranium? So
I think what it's going to be is like, if people know about this one secret place that has vibranium, that has these resources, then are they putting other secret places at risk? We could definitely also have had a situation where Namor and T'Challa knew each other and had made a vow to never reveal the secrets of where they come from. You know, so I'll be very interested to see. Also, this is old, from an old leaked description that was to do with the casting, but there was also notions of somebody who was looking for not only vibranium, but they were going around searching out almost secret locations, including Antarctica, which is one of the other places you can find vibranium, which is where the Savage Lands are. So I wonder if it's going to be this notion of the world has realized, sort of like what happens in the Zero's X-Men movies, but in terms of people, the world has realized there is a segment of society that they have never seen.
Yeah.
And if that is the case, then they are going to want the things that they can get from that society. So yeah, I'm very interested to see this. I'm also really interested to see like how Riri ties in, like Ironheart, because that's a character we love so much, and it's clear that she is going to be a major part of Black Panther, which is coming out before Ironheart. So it'll be interesting to see her retroactively then get her own show spinning out of Black Panther rather than meeting her first in the TV show.
There was a sizzle reel from Ironheart featuring a logo reveal. Dominique Thorne will be Riri Williams, and we get the antagonist, the reveal of the antagonist, Anthony Ramos as the Hood.
This is so cool.
Which has been confirmed by Kevin Feige and Ryan Coogler. So the Hood, Parker Robbins, he's just like a small-time criminal who like mugs a demon and takes the demon's hood, and the hood is magic, and next thing you know, through this and through the ability to wield magical powers, now he becomes like a crime lord, like a big time magical mashup mafia figure who was for a time during the Dark Reign days, like a real mover and shaker at like the highest levels of villaindom, like in the Marvel comics.
Yeah, and something that came out of this as well was this notion of science versus magic.
Yeah.
Which you kind of touch on there. So I think if you look at the way that these things are going, we have Doctor Strange, who's now a three-eyed cosmic magic man in space with Clea, and then we have the Wakandans dealing with having the most high-tech science and technology in the living known universe, probably. I think that clash that they're seeding in Ironheart of this notion of science versus magic is going to become a major thing going forward. Another thing, we don't have a lot of info about it because they didn't tell us about it much, but they showed a Marvel's trailer, and I just want to touch on it because there was something that was really interesting in the trailer, which is apparently it's not just Kamala and Carol who are switching places. It's also Monica. And It's the three of them throughout the movie that are allegedly going to be switching places to do with the bands and their powers. So I think that is very interesting, and that is apparently going to be the major conflict. So I'm very excited to see that trailer whenever they decide to release it.
Now, when I think of the Hood, I immediately think about his relationship with Madame Mask.
Yep.
And I wonder who is, a masked supervillain, kind of like a super soldier type supervillain, the daughter of Count Nefaria. And I wonder if they would bring that into it. That would be pretty cool.
Well, also as well, if you think about it, in the Hawkeye comics,
yes,
they have the reveal that Madame Mask is connected to Kate Bishop, and we might have already met a version of her. So seeing as this is another TV show, I'll be very interested to see if they kind of tie that together, especially because Riri, if they are going to do a Young Avengers, will likely be the Iron Man analog like Iron Lad was in the original Young Avengers lineup. So I'd be very interested to see how that connects. The Hood, another character, looks very similar to DC's Hood, otherwise known as the man who would become the Joker in the old Killing Joke. Wow, we're really getting the duality today.
I know. Last couple of MCU things, Charlie Cox says of Daredevil Born Again that this is, whether it's a reboot or not, or what they're calling it, it's a season 1, not a season 4. So what I took that to mean is they're going to pick and choose the things that they like from the Daredevil Netflix series And those are going to be part of his backstory, and then other things that they don't like. They're not necessarily like the Defender. Like, did he ever join the Defenders? Probably not. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but like,
I would also
did he fight the Kingpin? Yes.
This is another thing where we were I would say we were right, because we basically thought they were going to do what they did with D'Onofrio, where they reimagine him for the MCU. They make him more super heroic. They make his powers different. I'm be very interested to see how they visualize Daredevil's powers when he re-enters the MCU in a more significant way.
And then Armor Wars was already confirmed, but now they're reconfirming it.
Because everyone was worried after the timeline.
This feels of a piece with Secret Invasion, with Thunderbolts, obviously we see Don Cheadle in Secret Invasion. It'll be fascinating to see how that stuff all ties together. And it really feels like, at least for some of these things, Secret Invasion, Thunderbolts, Armor Wars, Wakanda Forever, the thing that people were kind of saying about Phase 4, it feels like fragmented. What's it about? Where are we going? It feels like there's some real thematic cohesiveness to the stuff that has been announced and the directions they're taking.